Have you ever wished that you had learned something a whole lot sooner than you did? Like maybe you were painting with watercolor and all these things that became aha moments recently really were inconvenient and should have been learned before, but you just didn't know. So today I am talking about something that I wish I had learned 5,000 hours ago. And I don't know how long 5,000 hours is, but that's a lot of painting. So I'm excited to share this with you, and we're going to talk about the ways in which we can utilize this thing. So let's get to it. So today I have my 7x10 watercolor professional paper. This is by Meeden, it's linked below, and then I've got some masking tape just to tape down a nice little border. I've got my water jar, my brushes, which these are samples from my watercolor brush collection, coming out soon. If you are interested in that, the link for the waitlist is below and you will get notified. Or you're just here to paint today and that's okay. So we've got our watercolor paints here now. I like to spray them down with a spray bottle, but if you don't have a spray bottle, you can just take a little bit of water from your brush and just tap it and you'll get those wet again, and that will reactivate our lovely paints. So I'm so excited because I want to tell you about the thing I learned, and I wish I had learned it so long ago. And I know that's why you're here today, because you saw the title. Whether you felt like it was gimmicky or enticing, it's pretty simple, but yet I feel like it's kind of the biggest thing. So to be able to improve your watercolor painting, sure, you can get the right supplies, I suppose, the things that you feel comfortable with. You can get the supplies that make you feel happy and excited to paint, whether you have a big budget or a small one. But the big number one thing, you guys, is to improve your watercolor painting is to practice for 5 minutes a day. Now, as I'm showing you this little thing here, because that's my sample page. Now, it's not gimmicky, and I'm going to tell you why I think it's important. Why 5 minutes? Why that number? Why not 10 or 30 or an hour? It's a tiny little bit of time. But here's the thing. As we're starting to get this painting going, by the way, I'm going to do a variety of brushes today. You can do a filbert that is rounded, or you can do a round brush. This is a number 6 round. This one is a quill, and you can get a similar shape with a round brush, maybe like a 10 or so, I'd say. But I'm going to use my quill. And so I say 5 minutes a day. So I'm grabbing some pink because it's small, it's attainable, it's doable, and it's not going to stress you out. Set a timer and decide, okay, when am I going to have my 5 minutes? So I'll keep talking about this because this is not the only thing I want to mention about this practice, why it's good for you and how to implement it as well. So I've got this little puddle on my little palette here, and it's fairly runny, so pretty light. I like to start light. Now I also have, some orange, and there's pink in there. Just gonna kind of activate that. There's some yellow. What I want to do today is just kind of vary up some of the colors that we're using. So we're going to start with, we've got these stems of flowers, and we're going to start with the large flower in the middle, and that's got quite a puddle. Just dab your brush on the paper towel and you'll be good to go. We're going to swoop in towards the center and just kind of try to make these beautiful little petals for our flower. I would use the filbert, but I know that's not something that everyone has, so today we're just going to use the quill, which is very similar to the round as well. All right, so 5 minutes. We're going to do some side facing too. I got to explain this before I can kind of like let you run with this, I suppose. We're going to do some like kind of bud-like flowers now and just change up the colors, or maybe the darkness or the lightness of your color. Just make it fun, make it fancy. Press with the belly of the brush, creating a beautiful shape. So 5 minutes is attainable. It's not scary. You can also dip your brush, swipe it, dab it. And it's something that you can set yourself up for success. I don't want you to get into space where you feel like you're in a failure mode, where you say, okay, every day for 30 minutes, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to improve my painting. And you're going to see faster results if you put in 30 minutes or an hour. but you're also going to see results if you put in 5 minutes, and you're also hopefully not going to feel fatigue, because 5 minutes, everyone can find 5 minutes for something that they love. All right, so we've got this here. I'm going to take my number 6 round, and I'm going to start by adding in the green. So, and here's the other thing too. If you sit down to paint for 5 minutes and you're like, that's all I'm going to do, it feels attainable. Let's just go ahead and light pressure, just kind of sketchy sketch, put in this stem. If you do 5 minutes, I guarantee, for the most part, unless you're in a rush, you're going to do more than 5 minutes. And you're going to feel successful. Now we're going to take diagonals and we're going to connect one stem to another. Okay? Little stemmy going into the big stem. It's okay if it touches your watercolor. Watercolor bleeds and moves around. It's just what it does. And you know, I don't know, I've sat down for 5 minutes before thinking that's all I'm going to do, and then I'll be done, and then I just keep going and I keep practicing. But I didn't feel guilty taking 5 minutes out of my day initially. Sometimes we feel guilty, right? Taking time out for ourselves, especially if we've been working all day and we feel like we need to get into doing some chores. Just a few extra little fluffies in here, okay? Just pressing with the belly of the brush. You see how simple that is and how pretty that can be. So if you sit down and you're like, just 5 minutes, but then you just want to keep going, it's absolutely charming time. And now you haven't felt guilty when you sat down to paint, and you've actually, instead of skipping the hour or 30 minutes you promised yourself, you knew you could do 5. It felt attainable. And you also felt good about accomplishing that as well. Such a good win-win scenario. A little bit of buds sticking out there. Kind of look at this and see if there's anything you want to add. We're going to add in some more flowers as well. Just a couple more stems and some greenery. This is meant to be a pretty quick, fast, and hopefully satisfying painting. I'm just going to put in little tiny greens, fillers, foliage. We also want to connect some of these blooms. So go ahead and do that if you've added any in. So, and also when you do a consistent practice, you know, you're building on the skills you learned from the day before, and you're creating that beautiful muscle memory that we really need to start to feel like we're getting something, right? It's amazing. Little green stuff here and there. This is kind of what I call, we're just kind of fluffing this out, right? And making this more interesting, making it come alive. So, and also I think it's very important as we're building up the next flowers to really prioritize your practice times. Prioritize them and make them a routine around like the same time each day. Think about, when is it going to work for me? For some people, they might say, well, first thing I wake up, I'm going to go ahead and start doing some painting. And other people are going to say, you know what, that's going to rush me. I'm going to go ahead and do another bigger flower right here. It's going to rush me. I don't have time to do that in the morning. I'm very busy. I'm getting up. I'm waking up. I'm getting up children. I'm rushing out the door. And so it's going to feel very stressful to be you to try to do that in the morning. So you're going to want to do that in the evening, maybe. Or maybe at work, do you have a job where you can actually sit down to paint a little bit for just 5 minutes? Some people have that space, that ability to do that, which is amazing. Just wanted to get more of an orangey here. And if that's, you know, you, take advantage of that. You know, maybe during your lunch break, you're having a little bit of a painting fest for 5 minutes. Maybe you involved another friend, a coworker says, I would like to learn watercolor, and you just paint with them and you take the time. I just think it's great. When it's part of your routine, it's less of a ability to make an excuse, right? When it's part of your life, you schedule it, put it on your calendar. I mean, why not? Let's put in this guy. So we're going to do that stem again. Oof, that one really spread. Let me show you what to do if that happens. Now you could always dry. Here, let's take this brush. So clean it, dab it. You can always dry your painting before you do stuff like this, or you can just lift some color. So remove some color, clean it off, dab it, and remove some color. And now we've removed a lot of the liquid, so it's going to stop spreading anyway, and then we can add in more layers. just to cover it up afterwards. So now we need some more green, and we're going to start connecting things together. There we go. Diagonal line, diagonal line. And I love when you use a very pointy brush like this one, you get such nice thin marks, which I feel like add to kind of the realistic look of the painting. So little, just, you know, little tiny brush strokes here to add some greenery in. Just like that. A little extra pizzazz, as I like to say. So then I do want to build up the top as well. So we're just going to go a little boop and a little boop and a little boop, kind of like that. Okay, kind of like that. Spilling water on our paper. All the things. We're going to take that quilt again. So here's another tip for you as we're going to build up our bigger flower here, and I'm just going to put it a little bit higher than these other two. Set up your space. Now, when I first started painting, I didn't have a set space, and it was really frustrating. I would have to take my paints and everything out of a box that I had them in, and I'd set them up at the kitchen table. It just didn't work for me because I found myself not painting as much because I had to do all this setup first. And it just wasn't, for me, was a roadblock to being successful. And so I actually purchased this really tiny, kind of like a card table. Let's do some smaller ones now. A little tiny table, and I set it up in the corner, and that was my space. And then I started to film, and that was the place where I filmed my little reels as well. And I felt much more successful in that way, because every time I passed by my desk, it would remind me to paint. My stuff was already set out there, and I didn't feel like I had an excuse, but I was also really excited. So another thing to get you excited about this journey of painting for just 5 minutes a day is to try new subjects. You know, go to Pinterest, go to the library. Let's do the same thing, guys, we've done already. Just gonna kind of go like this, make it a little bit longer. Go find new subjects. What are some things that you're wanting to learn? You know, save some reference photos or take some photos over here in the US that the weather is starting to get much nicer. We can get outside and take photos that make us excited to paint, make us feel alive, and just think about what you'd like to learn to paint, to draw, and to just start creating, giving you that time and space for trying something new. I think it really makes a difference when you have something that is quite exciting, and then you can also figure out the things that you don't like. So let's do a few of these little leaves here, maybe some longer ones too. As we're just starting to fill this out, I do want to fluff this out a little bit more. I'm actually going to just keep with this brush for right now and just put in some of those little cute brush strokes. And I love using the different colors here. Let's go ahead and put in some of that greenery too. Just little tiny marks, fluffing it out. My green is spreading and I'm embracing it. That's okay. It's okay if the green spreads. It's not the end of the world. So the last thing I would say too is once you've learned all the things that you feel like you need to learn, well, let's go ahead and fluff out this painting a little bit more. Then teach someone else. What does that look like? What does that mean? Does that mean that maybe you have like a girls' night and you're like, hey, I'm going to teach you guys some watercolor painting, some tiny little flowers right here. Maybe you want to start doing some reels online or start your Instagram and kind of growing your following. That's how I started. I just started about a year and a half after painting. I started sharing my work and trying to help other people learn how to create. And that's going to build your confidence. It's going to build your mastery of the skills. And it's going to be part of that giving back in life that is really beautiful to do. It just makes life much more wholesome when we give and not just take all the time. All right, so there is that part here. I'm going to dry this and then we're going to do our second layer. So now I want to start putting in some greens, and I think to be more minimal, I'm going to just grab, my smaller brush here and then just grab whatever green. It's a nice medium watery mix. So there's a lot of pigment in there. It's not terribly light in color, but I just want to start putting in some, some brush strokes for some leaves and things. And I know I won't be able to see everything here because we have our lovely tape, and so we can't put our leaves on this side, but that's okay. I like having some type of a border, and we'll just kind of put some of those leaves through there. We can even put some down here. Leaves, I guess, maybe grass is what I'm thinking of, but definitely some leaves in terms of these flowers. Some leafy greens. And then you can even go really super thick with the paint, and then kind of, while it's still wet, add in some little marks too that are darker, that are more yellowy. In this case, they're more yellowy, and a little bit more of those dark marks for the stems. Kind of got a dry brush effect, which is pretty. But I'm really excited to add in some extra pizzazz to our flowers and just make them really stand out. Maybe over here too, a little bit there. So it's just a fun, quick little painting that can give you some joy right away. I'm actually going to keep this one, some satisfaction. If maybe it's not a 5-minute painting, but it's an example of something that you could even say, listen, I just have 5 minutes. I'm going to go and start working on my painting for 5. And then the next day you can do 5 more. If that's all you have, just do 5. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we're just going to, take this really nice pointed space here with this brush. And we're just going to do some cute little scratchy marks. That's kind of what I'm thinking of, just using kind of light pressure. You could do heavy pressure if you want to, but what I want to do, and with these side facing, I like to just press down a little bit more. But what I want to do is really make that contrast between the light marks we first did and the dark ones. And I also want it to look very, very artsy, just having some of those little brush strokes showing. I'm not trying to just like blend everything, I guess. So I like that look. So you can do some orange. And once we put the centers of our flowers too, it's just gonna look so cute. Let's do some pink as well. And there we go. And I have to say too, of this whole plan, so no matter what, there's always somebody that feels kind of guilty. We often feel kind of guilty for, let's say, for not doing enough and for sometimes doing too much. It just depends on the situation. But if there's a part of you that says, okay, every single day, I'm going to do 5 minutes of painting, and then you just don't get it done, then you start to feel guilty, not only that you didn't do what you said you would because life happens, but then now you're like, oh man, but I have no excuse because it's only 5 minutes. Okay, so don't paint out of guilt. I'd rather you just say, you know what, I'm an adult, or maybe you're not an adult, maybe you're a kid, but watching this, but you're like, I am going to choose not to paint today, and that's okay. You don't have to paint every day. But if you want to see improvement, the more you paint, the more improvement you will have, unless you're doing it out of guilt, then you feel anxious. So, you see what I mean? It gets a little bit challenging. But the bottom line is, if whatever goal you want to have, try to stick with it most of the time. And don't be hard on yourself when you skip it. It's okay. I think being encouraging in yourself will help you to then get right to it again when you're ready. It's okay to take breaks. All right, so how is your painting looking? If you are liking this video, guys, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel. It lets us know that you're enjoying this whole experience. I've got some watery paint here, and I'm just going to go ahead and splatter, tap the brush, do some splatter as well. Now I'm going to dry this one more time, and then we're going to go ahead and do our centers. For our centers, they're going to be so fun. So we are going to take that number 6 round, and I'm going to grab a dark color. So you can grab a black or brown, or in my case, I'm doing this Payne's Gray, which is more of a dark blue navy color. Really concentrated. You can see I'm just digging in there. And we are going to do the stippling effect or technique. Stippling, instead of making just like a solid circle, I like to stipple and leave some white space as well. Just like so. Little white space. Saying hello. So now that you're thinking about all this, what are you thinking you want to do? Do you want to have a goal set up where you're practicing more consistently? And on the reverse of that, if you're a person who has goals, maybe they're really rigid or rigid and strict, and maybe you want to relax a little bit on your goals because maybe you feel like you're being a little too hard on yourself. Sometimes our expectations are quite high and it can be hard for our own selves to deal with it. So either way, whatever you're dealing with, I'd love for you to let me know in comments if you have kind of a resolve based on what we've been chatting about today. It'd be so interesting to see the changes that you're planning on making. So this is pretty much done. I do want to add a little more concentrated paint. I'm just going to grab this paint and just quick marks. See how quick I am? I'm not trying to, just sit there and do this forever. I like the quick motions of not thinking too much about it. Sometimes we think too much about our painting and then we just get a little too, not paranoid, but a little too obsessive and about looking for perfectionism. I'm just going to do this too. So the reason why I did a little green splatter, I did a border because I wanted to just have that splatter only go to a certain space. But now I want to look at it and see if I'd like to add in maybe some more green on the sides. So this is a place where you get to think about it, kind of make your own choice as I'm making my own choice. And I always like to encourage you guys to use your intuition. So if you feel like, in these paintings, if there's a way that you want to paint something a little different, you should feel like you can go ahead and do it. So here's the painting. And I think it was really fun to put it together like this. We have a nice border, but you know what? I'm going to cheat just a little bit. I'm actually going to take, I'm going to take the quill, the larger brush, and I am going to grab a little more paint and paint a little bit outside the lines. I do like how this is just flat here. It's just a different look, a different way of doing this, but I'm going to go outside the lines with this one just a little bit because I think that's just kind of fun. So everything else is inside the lines except the greens. That's just something I decided right now. We'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. All right, and sometimes using the broad side of the brush can really help. So take a look at your painting. How has it turned out for you? Do you feel like there's anything that you need to add in at this point? I think it's been a lot of fun just to kind of play around. Maybe with a smaller composition, you feel sometimes that you can do more. And sometimes a smaller composition can feel restrictive because you want to do more, right? But sometimes it's nice because then you have the excuse where you don't have to do as much and you can be done start to finish in a lot faster fashion. So that's always a good thing. So anyway, there's the completed painting. I hope you enjoyed yourself. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed painting the simple painting today. We went smaller, we went more simple, but the whole point is to find some peace and joy and relaxation. And now you know what the thing is. And I encourage you to find your space to be able to practice for those 5 minutes a day. Don't make it stressful. Don't let it give you this guilt complex, but remembering that it's just 5 and it's not an hour, it's not 5 hours. You can skip it when you don't want to do it, but the whole point is the mindset is there to prioritize that practice for making improvement. So I appreciate you guys watching this video. As always, linked below, I've got my Craft Mo brushes. And last but not least, that art retreat, linked below, Italy, October, you know the drill. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate you all. And if you're interested in watching a video that helps you expand your beginner watercolor skills, then click the link right here and enjoy.